The story of Nebuchadnezzar, one of history's most fascinating rulers, begins with the passing of his father, Nabopolassar. As the crown prince, Nebuchadnezzar inherited not just a throne, but a kingdom on the rise of Babylon ready to dominate the ancient Near East. From the moment he assumed power, his ambition was clear. He would transform Babylon into the most powerful city in the world, a jewel of culture, architecture, and military might. Nebuchadnezzar's rise was not simply a matter of inheritance. He was a brilliant strategist and a determined leader, understanding that strength and expansion were essential to securing Babylon's place on the global stage. Early in his reign, he launched campaigns that would redefine the political map of the region. His military prowess became legendary, as he conquered key territories, including the rich lands of Egypt and the city of Jerusalem, demonstrating both his tactical skill and relentless determination. Each victory reinforced his reputation, not just as a king, but as a ruler whose vision reached far beyond his own city walls. But Nebuchadnezzar's story is more than battles and conquests. It is a story of ambition, ingenuity, and the unyielding desire to leave a lasting legacy. Under his reign, Babylon transformed into a city of extraordinary splendor. He commissioned grand architectural projects that would amaze generations, fortified walls that seemed impenetrable, majestic gates adorned with intricate designs, and perhaps even the fabled hanging gardens, one of the wonders of the ancient world. Through these works, Nebuchadnezzar did not merely demonstrate power. He showcased the grandeur of a civilization at its peak, inspiring awe and respect from both his subjects and his rivals. Yet, his reign was also intertwined with stories of faith, prophecy, and lessons that echo through time. The tales of young captives from Jerusalem, steadfast in their belief despite immense pressure, highlight themes of courage, conviction, and moral resilience. Nebuchadnezzar himself was a complex figure, a ruler whose confidence sometimes bordered on hubris, yet whose accomplishments shaped the course of history. As we explore this incredible story, we invite you to dive deeper into the life and legacy of Nebuchadnezzar. Witness the rise of Babylon, the battles that defined an empire, and the remarkable architectural feats that have inspired centuries. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more fascinating journeys into the past, uncovering the stories of leaders, empires, and the remarkable people who changed the world forever. Stay with us, because the journey of Nebuchadnezzar is just beginning, and the history of Babylon is a tale you won't to miss. Nebuchadnezzar's reign is remembered not only for his military conquests, but also for the extraordinary transformation he brought to Babylon, turning it into a city whose grandeur would echo through the ages. Upon ascending the throne after his father Nabopolassar's death, he envisioned a city that would not merely be the seat of his empire, but a symbol of power, wealth, and divine favor, a place where every brick and column proclaimed the strength and sophistication of Babylon. His vision extended far beyond the battlefield, embracing the arts, architecture, and urban planning in ways that few rulers in history had ever attempted. At the heart of this transformation were the massive fortifications that now surrounded Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar understood that a great city needed to be both impressive and secure, a fortress capable of deterring invaders while projecting authority to all who approached its gates. He commissioned walls of unparalleled thickness and height, constructed with sun-baked bricks bound by bitumen, creating barriers so formidable that even the most seasoned armies would hesitate to challenge them. These walls were not only defensive structures but also statements of prestige, signaling to the world that Babylon was a power to be reckoned with, a city that could withstand the pressures of both war and time. Within these fortifications, Nebuchadnezzar embarked on one of his most celebrated projects, the Ishtar Gate, a magnificent entrance to the city that immediately captured the imagination of anyone who approached it. The gate's vivid blue-glazed bricks were adorned with golden images of dragons and bulls, symbolizing Marduk, the chief deity, and Adad, the storm, intertwining divine favor with political authority. The craftsmanship and scale of the Ishtar Gate were breathtaking, reflecting both the skill of Babylonian artisans and Nebuchadnezzar's dedication to creating a city that dazzled as much as it defended. Through this monumental work, the king demonstrated his ability to harness human talent and resources on an extraordinary scale, leaving a legacy of artistry that would inspire admiration for millennia. Among the wonders attributed to Nebuchadnezzar's reign, the Hanging Gardens of Babylon remain the most mysterious and enchanting, a testament to his ambition and vision. While historians continue to debate their exact appearance and even their existence, ancient accounts describe terraces of lush greenery cascading like waterfalls from the city's walls, irrigated by ingenious engineering that brought water from the Euphrates River to nourish exotic plants and trees. These gardens, if they truly existed, were more than a marvel of horticulture. They were a deliberate expression of power, a way for Nebuchadnezzar to transform nature itself into a symbol of his reign. Blending beauty, innovation, and control over the environment in ways that few rulers could have imagined. Nebuchadnezzar's architectural and urban projects were inseparable from the life of the city itself. Markets, temples, and public spaces flourished under his guidance, fostering a vibrant cultural and economic environment. He sought to create a city where commerce, religion, and social life intertwined seamlessly, ensuring that Babylon's streets pulsed with activity and influence. Every structure, from the grand palaces to the modest dwellings of artisans, contributed to a sense of order and majesty, reinforcing the king's authority while enhancing the city's livability and appeal. Visitors to Babylon would not only be impressed by its defenses and gates but also by the vitality and organization of its society, reflecting a ruler who understood the importance of governance as much as grandeur. Yet, amidst all this magnificence, Nebuchadnezzar's story retains its human complexity. Accounts of his interactions with captives from Jerusalem, stories of divine warnings, and his occasional displays of hubris remind us that even a king capable of monumental achievement was subject to the uncertainties of fate and the lessons of morality. These narratives, woven into the tapestry of Babylon's physical and cultural transformation, reveal a ruler whose vision extended beyond mere domination, encompassing legacy, belief, and the desire to leave an enduring mark upon the world. The combination of formidable defenses, the awe-inspiring Ishtar Gate, and the legendary Hanging Gardens created a cityscape that was both practical and poetic, blending the needs of security with the desire to inspire wonder. Nebuchadnezzar's Babylon became a hub of political, religious, and cultural life, a city that reflected the king's ambitions and the capabilities of its people. It stood as a testament to what could be achieved when vision, authority, and resources converged under a determined and imaginative ruler. As we reflect on Nebuchadnezzar's achievements, it becomes clear that his legacy is not confined to the pages of military history or the stories of conquest. The city he built, the innovations he championed, and the myths he inspired continue to resonate, inviting us to imagine the sight of Babylon in its full glory. Walls rising toward the sky, gates gleaming in the sunlight, and gardens cascading with verdant life, a living monument to human creativity and ambition. By exploring this remarkable transformation, we gain insight not only into the ambitions of one of history's most notable kings, but also into the enduring power of vision and determination to shape the world. If you are captivated by the wonders of ancient civilizations and the stories of leaders who changed the course of history, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Join us as we journey further into the life of Nebuchadnezzar, uncover the secrets of Babylon, and discover how one man's ambition turned a city into a legend that has echoed across millennia. inspiring awe and curiosity in generations that followed. Stay with us, because the full story of Babylon's splendor and the remarkable legacy of its most famous king is a journey you will not want to miss. Amid the splendor of Babylon, where walls soared skyward and gates gleamed like precious jewels, a quieter, more personal story unfolded, one that would resonate through generations far beyond the reach of kings and armies. While Nebuchadnezzar I poured his vision into the city's monumental architecture and sprawling gardens, a group of young captives from Jerusalem found themselves transported into this alien world, their destinies entwined with the power and ambition of Babylon, yet defined by a different kind of resilience, a steadfastness that would test both character and faith. Among them were Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, teenagers plucked from their homeland not merely as prisoners but as instruments of the empire's broader strategy, to educate and assimilate promising youths into Babylonian ways, ensuring that the next generation would reflect the culture, knowledge, and loyalty of the city itself. From the moment they arrived, these young men faced a whirlwind of transformation, an intense program of study and training designed to mold them into ideal subjects of the empire. They were immersed in the Babylonian language, culture, and literature, instructed in science, mathematics, and the arts, and groomed in the philosophies and rituals that reinforced the authority of the king and the state. Every day was a test of adaptability, a challenge to master unfamiliar customs while navigating the subtle pressures to conform. To succeed in this environment required intelligence, patience, and above all, a capacity for discernment. For the education they received was not neutral but carefully structured to shape identity, loyalty, and worldview. The palace tutors, masters of rhetoric and law, sought to forge minds capable of serving Babylon with skill and unquestioning obedience. Yet they could not dictate the deeper convictions that these young captives carried within themselves. What set Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah apart was their unwavering commitment to the principles and beliefs that had been instilled in them at home. Despite the allure of status, luxury, and power that surrounded them, they refused to abandon their faith in God, a choice that demanded courage, subtlety, and a remarkable clarity of purpose. In a world where meals were often offered as part of religious rites, where social rituals carried divine implications, and where every act could be interpreted as a statement of loyalty, the young men navigated daily life with careful discernment. They respected the culture in which they lived and engaged with it intellectually. Yet they drew firm boundaries around the practices and beliefs that defined their identity, a silent but powerful resistance that revealed the strength of inner conviction in the face of external pressures. Their story illustrates a profound tension between assimilation and integrity, a universal struggle that transcends time and place. In the palace classrooms, as they translated texts and debated philosophical ideas, they demonstrated remarkable intelligence and adaptability, excelling in every measure of their education. They gained the respect of their instructors and the admiration of peers, their brilliance shining through in logic, strategy, and knowledge of the world. Yet what made their accomplishments truly remarkable was the way they balanced this success with fidelity to their beliefs, choosing paths that honored both their education and their spiritual commitments. Their decisions, sometimes small and sometimes dramatic, carried enormous consequences. For each act of fidelity tested the limits of royal tolerance and could have resulted in punishment or exile. Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah's resilience became emblematic of a deeper principle: the ability to thrive within a foreign system without surrendering one's moral and spiritual compass. In a palace designed to impress and dominate, where power and spectacle were measured in walls, gates, and gardens, These young men demonstrated that true strength could also be quiet, principled, and deeply personal. Their lives were not merely stories of survival, but of strategic engagement, where knowledge became a tool for both adaptation and preservation, and faith became a shield that protected identity and purpose. Each day in the royal court was a negotiation between the demands of empire and the convictions of conscience, a delicate dance that required insight, patience, and courage beyond their years. This tension between cultural immersion and spiritual fidelity would define their legacy, for their choices reverberated beyond Babylon, shaping narratives of courage and wisdom that inspired generations. Daniel's insight and visions, the steadfastness of Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah in the face of trials, and their unwavering adherence to principles even when tested by fire or decree, became emblematic of the power of personal integrity. They demonstrated that brilliance and devotion need not be sacrificed for success, that one can achieve excellence while honoring deeper convictions, and that the might of an empire, impressive as it may be, is not absolute in shaping the hearts of those who carry purpose and belief within themselves. As we reflect on their journey, it becomes evident that the story of these young captives is inseparable from the grandeur of Babylon itself. The massive walls, the towering Ishtar Gate, and even the legendary Hanging Gardens provided a backdrop against which human courage and conviction were vividly displayed. While Nebuchadnezzar's architectural vision showcased power and ingenuity, the quiet heroism of Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah revealed that true influence often resides in character, resilience, and the ability to navigate challenges with integrity. Their narrative enriches our understanding of Babylon not merely as a city of awe-inspiring constructions, but as a stage for human stories of faith, intellect, and enduring strength. If you are captivated by the remarkable journeys of individuals who stood strong in the face of immense pressure, and by the incredible history of civilizations that shaped the ancient world, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Join us as we continue to explore the lives of Daniel and his companions, the splendor of Babylon, and the timeless lessons of courage, wisdom, and steadfastness that still resonate in our lives today, reminding us that even in the shadow of empires, personal conviction can shine as brightly as the grandest gates and gardens ever built. In the heart of Babylon, amidst the splendor of towering walls and the dazzling beauty of the Ishtar Gate, a sense of unease began to ripple through the royal palace, touching even the mighty Nebuchadnezzar himself. The king, who had spent decades shaping his city into a symbol of unmatched power and wealth, was now haunted by visions that seemed to reach beyond the ordinary reach of human comprehension. One night, as he slept, a dream visited him with such intensity and clarity that he awoke in a cold sweat, realizing that this was no ordinary dream but a message laden with profound significance. In his vision, he saw a colossal statue, an awe-inspiring figure crafted from multiple materials, each section gleaming with distinct textures and colors: gold, silver, bronze, iron, and clay. The statue's magnificence was undeniable, yet as he watched, he saw it shattered by a mysterious stone, one that grew mightily until it filled the entire earth, leaving the statue fragmented and powerless in its wake. Nebuchadnezzar's mind wrestled with the meaning of the vision, troubled by the thought that his empire, built with so much labor, brilliance, and ingenuity, might not endure forever, and that some force beyond human mastery was at play. The king summoned his advisors, magicians, and wise, commanding them to reveal the interpretation of the dream. Yet, despite their knowledge and learning, they faltered, unable to unravel the mystery that had unsettled the ruler of Babylon. Fear and frustration crept into the palace corridors, for failure to interpret the dream carried consequences that could be as severe as the vision itself seemed to predict. It was at this critical moment that Daniel, a young man whose wisdom and insight had already distinguished him among his peers, stepped forward, alongside his companions, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Daniel had navigated the intricate demands of Babylonian education with steadfast faith and remarkable intelligence, earning the trust of those around him without ever compromising his convictions. The young captive from Jerusalem now faced the challenge of decoding a vision meant to transcend ordinary understanding, a task that required not only intellect but spiritual insight and courage. Daniel approached the situation with humility and prayer, seeking guidance that surpassed human reasoning. Through this disciplined devotion, he received the interpretation directly from God, a revelation that would illuminate the unfolding course of history far beyond the walls of Babylon. When he presented his understanding to Nebuchadnezzar, he described the statue with clarity, explaining that each material represented successive kingdoms, with Babylon, the golden head, being glorious yet temporary, soon to be succeeded by empires of silver, bronze, and iron, each diminishing in comparison yet fulfilling a part of the larger divine plan. The clay mixed with iron, he revealed, symbolized kingdoms that would possess strength but also fragility, hinting at the inherent instability of human ambition and the limits of mortal power. Then, with a voice both steady and reverent, Daniel explained the stone, cut without human hands, which would rise to obliterate the statue and establish a kingdom eternal, one founded not on conquest or gold but on righteousness and divine authority. The message resonated with profound truth, striking at the very heart of human pride and ambition. Nebuchadnezzar, a ruler accustomed to measuring power by walls, gates, and gardens, was confronted with the reality that even the grandest empire was a fleeting chapter in a story governed by a higher order. The dream underscored the ephemeral nature of wealth and dominance, while also revealing the unassailable permanence of a kingdom rooted in justice, wisdom, and divine purpose. Daniel's interpretation was not merely a prediction of political succession. It was a reminder of the moral and spiritual dimensions that govern the course of human history, and the importance of humility, foresight, and recognition of forces greater than oneself. The king, awed and humbled, acknowledged the truth of Daniel's revelation, proclaiming the greatness of the God who communicates through visions and grants understanding to those faithful and discerning enough to receive it. This moment solidified Daniel's status, not simply as a wise counselor, but as a bridge between human endeavor and divine insight, someone whose intellect and faith illuminated paths that others could not perceive. The story of Nebuchadnezzar's dream, the multi-material statue, and the stone that would endure forever became a touchstone in the narrative of Babylon, interweaving the grandeur of architectural achievement with the profound lessons of history and spirituality. In this, we see how the vast city, the legendary hanging gardens, the towering walls, and the opulent Ishtar Gate were not merely markers of wealth and ambition, but also the backdrop against which human character, faith, and understanding were tested and revealed. Daniel's courage and discernment, alongside the steadfastness of his companions, exemplify the enduring impact of integrity and insight amidst the fleeting nature of earthly power. The dream serves as a timeless reminder that while empires rise and fall, the principles of justice, faith, and wisdom remain eternal, guiding generations through the complex interplay of human ambition and divine providence. If you are fascinated by the intersection of history, faith, and the stories that shape civilizations, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Join us as we continue exploring the extraordinary life of Daniel, the grandeur of Babylon, and the lessons that echo from ancient times, reminding us that true strength lies not only in power or architecture but in insight, resilience, and unwavering conviction that transcends even the mightiest empires. in the grandeur of Babylon, where walls gleamed in the sunlight and the Ishtar Gate shimmered with vibrant colors. The story of human ambition and divine purpose unfolded with startling intensity, intertwining the fate of empires with the lives of those who dared to uphold their convictions. Nebuchadnezzar, the powerful king who had transformed the city into a spectacle of architectural wonder, now issued a decree that would test the very limits of faith and courage among his subjects. In the heart of the city square, he had erected a golden statue, a towering figure of his own glory, commanding all to bow and worship it, an emblem not only of Babylon's might but also of his personal authority over the lands he had conquered. The square buzzed with anticipation and unease as citizens from across the empire gathered, the air heavy with expectation and the tension of obedience versus conviction. Among those present were young captives from Jerusalem, Daniel's companions Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, whose steadfast faith had already distinguished them in the royal court. They had been educated in the ways of Babylon, learning language, science, and philosophy. Yet they remained unwavering in their devotion to the God who had guided them through visions and interpretations that even the mighty king himself could not comprehend. As the music played and officials looked on, the king's command echoed across the square. Every man, woman, and child must bow before the golden image, or face the wrath of a blazing furnace. The edict was absolute, a challenge not merely to obedience but to identity, conscience, and faith. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego stood apart, their resolve shining brighter than any jewel in the king's treasury, refusing to defile themselves with idol worship. Their refusal was met with astonishment, anger, and a rising fury that seemed to shake the foundations of the city itself. Nebuchadnezzar, accustomed to immediate compliance, could not fathom the defiance of three young men, captives from a conquered land, standing firm where his authority demanded submission. In rage, he summoned them before the blazing furnace, the flames already roaring with terrifying intensity. A punishment designed to obliterate not just the body, but the spirit of dissent. Yet, as the three were cast into the fire, something extraordinary occurred. A moment would be remembered across generations as a testament to faith and divine protection. Witnesses recoiled, expecting the flames to consume them instantly. Yet they saw four figures walking unharmed among the fire, the fourth appearing as a radiant presence, as if the very essence of divine power had entered the furnace alongside the faithful. The king himself, struck with awe and disbelief, called out to them, his voice trembling with astonishment, and realized that their lives had been preserved not by chance but by a force beyond human understanding. A demonstration of protection, courage, and unwavering devotion that defied even the mightiest fires. In that instant, the golden statue, meant to assert absolute dominance, became a backdrop to a far greater story, a story in which the steadfastness of faith outweighed imperial power, and the presence of the divine revealed that loyalty to higher principles could triumph over even the most terrifying earthly threats. This miraculous deliverance resonated deeply within the city, altering perceptions and leaving an indelible mark on the empire's consciousness. Nebuchadnezzar, who had once measured greatness by walls, gates, and gardens, now understood that true power lay not merely in conquest or wealth, but in the recognition of forces beyond his control, and in the courage of those who stood by their convictions. The episode with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego became emblematic of a recurring theme woven throughout the history of Babylon: the tension between human ambition and divine providence, between temporal authority and eternal truth. As the three young men emerged from the furnace untouched, the crowd witnessed a vivid lesson in integrity, resilience, and faith. a story that would echo far beyond the empire, inspiring generations to consider the principles that guide their choices and the courage required to uphold them. Their survival was more than a miraculous rescue. It was a profound revelation that highlighted the enduring power of belief, the importance of moral courage, and the ways in which conviction can illuminate paths even in the most overwhelming circumstances. The king, now humbled and awed, acknowledged the greatness of the God who had intervened, proclaiming a new respect and understanding that bridged the gap between human authority and divine wisdom. The narrative of the fiery furnace, interwoven with the grand achievements of Nebuchadnezzar's Babylon, the soaring walls, the grandeur of the hanging gardens, the opulence of the Ishtar Gate created a tapestry in which earthly glory and spiritual truth coexisted, each enriching the significance of the other, revealing that history is not measured solely by monuments or conquests but by acts of courage, loyalty, and enduring faith. This episode stands as a timeless reminder that while empires rise and fall, and while wealth and power may shine for a moment, the principles of righteousness, integrity, and courage remain eternal, shaping not only the destiny of individuals but also the moral and spiritual fabric of civilizations. The story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego invites us to reflect on the values we hold, the choices we make under pressure, and the potential for extraordinary outcomes when faith and conviction guide our actions. If you are captivated by these ancient tales of courage, divine intervention, and the lessons that echo across millennia, be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Join us as we continue to explore the remarkable lives of Daniel, his companions, and the awe-inspiring city of Babylon, uncovering stories that teach us about resilience, faith, and the enduring power of standing firm in the face of trials that seem insurmountable. Nebuchadnezzar, whose power and wealth had transformed Babylon into one of history's most magnificent cities, was a man accustomed to control and conquest. Yet even he was not immune to the subtle currents of fate that stirred beyond the grasp of earthly authority. After years of building monumental walls, decorating the Ishtar Gate with dazzling tiles, and possibly commissioning the legendary Hanging Gardens to awe both citizens and visitors alike, the king had grown confident in the permanence of his empire and in the seeming inevitability of his own supremacy. His eyes had seen the sun glinting off the palace towers and the bustling markets filled with tribute from distant lands. Yet even amid this splendor, there existed a spiritual dimension that he had yet to fully comprehend, a force that no fortress or army could contain. One night, Nebuchadnezzar was pierced by a dream so vivid and unnerving that he awoke in a state of agitation, unable to dismiss its images as mere figments of imagination. The dream depicted a towering tree, its branches spreading wide to the heavens and its leaves sheltering creatures and people beneath its shade. A vision of grandeur and life that seemed to mirror the king's own achievements and the city he ruled. Yet, as he looked deeper into the vision, a disturbing transformation unfolded. The tree was struck down, its branches lopped off, its leaves scattered, and its trunk cut away, leaving only a stump bound with iron and bronze, a chilling signal of mortality and the limits of earthly dominion. The king, shaken and troubled, summoned Daniel, the young captive whose wisdom and insight had already become legendary within the courts of Babylon, to interpret the dream. Daniel, with reverence and clarity, revealed the profound message hidden in the king's vision. The tree symbolized Nebuchadnezzar himself, whose pride and authority had reached heights that mirrored the tree's branches touching the sky. The cutting down of the tree was not merely a prediction of temporal decline, but a divine warning. Unless the king acknowledged the supremacy of God, his pride would lead to his humbling, and he would endure a period of disorientation and exile from the comforts and honors he had taken for granted. Daniel's interpretation carried weight not through fear alone, but through the evident precision with which the vision reflected the king's character, and the transient nature of power when measured against the eternal. In this moment, the narrative threads of Babylon, its opulent architecture, its conquests over Egypt and Jerusalem, and the faithfulness of young captives like Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego interwove with a moral lesson that transcended time. No matter the scale of human achievement, divine authority shapes destiny in ways that cannot be ignored. Nebuchadnezzar's reaction to the interpretation was a complex blend of incredulity, fear, and eventual submission, as the reality of the king's vulnerability became undeniable. His previous victories and the city's grandeur now seemed fragile in light of the divine warning, illustrating that while walls, gates, and hanging gardens might impress subjects and foreign rulers, the true measure of wisdom lies in humility before forces far greater than human strength. The king's pride, once as towering as the imagined tree in his dream, began to erode as the prophecy unfolded, a process that would humble him in ways that were both literal and symbolic, reshaping his understanding of leadership, responsibility, and the place of human authority within the larger order of creation. This humbling was not a moment of punishment alone. It was an invitation to recognize the limits of self-reliance and the necessity of aligning earthly ambition with spiritual insight. A lesson that reverberated throughout the court and influenced the administration of Babylon in subtle yet profound ways. The story of the giant tree, interpreted by Daniel, did more than foretell the king's temporary fall from grandeur. It framed a broader narrative in which human pride and divine providence intersect. In the context of Babylon, where immense walls and the Ishtar Gate reflected the power of men, and the lives of faithful captives demonstrated the enduring strength of belief, the dream added a dimension of moral and spiritual significance, showing that even the most powerful rulers are accountable to principles higher than political might. The imagery of the tree, reaching skyward yet ultimately subject to being cut down, mirrored the tension between temporal authority and eternal truth, a tension explored through Daniel's guidance. The steadfastness of the young captives in the fiery furnace, and the architectural marvels that both celebrated and obscured human ambition. Through this lens, Babylon's story became not merely a record of conquest and splendor but a meditation on the responsibilities and vulnerabilities inherent in power, and on the necessity of humility and recognition of forces beyond the immediate senses. As Nebuchadnezzar grappled with the implications of the dream, the narrative intertwined with earlier lessons from Daniel's companions, whose faith and courage had already exemplified the protective and guiding hand of divine presence. The king's reflection upon the dream deepened the thematic continuity of the story. Grandeur and pride can captivate the senses and the mind, yet wisdom and insight emerge from acknowledgement of higher authority and the readiness to embrace humility. The dream of the tree became an emblem of the human condition, a reminder that while empires rise and architectural wonders endure for a time, the ethical and spiritual dimensions of leadership define legacy far more profoundly than physical monuments ever could. For viewers drawn to stories that reveal the intersection of ambition, faith, and divine guidance, the tale of Nebuchadnezzar's dream invites contemplation of how pride can both elevate and imperil, how humility can transform the strongest of rulers, and how insight and courage shape destinies. If this journey through Babylon's wonders, the trials of its captives, and the king's transformative experience inspires you, be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Continue with us as we unravel the epic of Daniel and Nebuchadnezzar, exploring the powerful lessons of humility, faith, and the enduring impact of divine wisdom woven into the tapestry of history. Nebuchadnezzar, once the unrivaled ruler of Babylon, had ascended to unprecedented heights of power, his empire stretching from the fertile plains of Mesopotamia to the distant lands of Egypt. Yet within the opulence of his palace and the grandeur of his city, an invisible tension had begun to stir. one that no wealth or military conquest could alleviate. The king, who had ordered the construction of walls that would withstand siege and gates that proclaimed the glory of Babylon to the world, had also witnessed the extraordinary faith and courage of young captives like Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, whose devotion to God remained unshaken even in the face of fiery furnaces and the demands of imperial authority. These earlier events had sown seeds of awareness in Nebuchadnezzar, though he had not yet fully grasped their significance. Then came the dream of the towering tree, interpreted by Daniel, which had shaken the king to his core, revealing that the height of his pride and the breadth of his dominion were ultimately subordinate to a higher divine authority. In the following days, Nebuchadnezzar's reaction to this revelation began a transformation that would mark both a personal and historical turning point. He was destined to experience a period of profound humility, one that would strip away the illusions of permanence and control he had so long relied upon. The prophecy came to pass in ways both literal and symbolic, as Nebuchadnezzar was overtaken by a strange and overwhelming affliction that robbed him of reason and human comportment. For 7 long years, the king wandered the lands he had once commanded with absolute authority, stripped of royal dignity and living as a creature of instinct rather than intellect. His mind clouded and his awareness focused on survival rather than strategy. His body became a reflection of his internal state, as hair and nails grew unchecked. Clothing and appearance became neglected, and his behaviors mirrored those of the animals he now resembled in his habits, grazing and roaming the fields without recognition of former status. The majesty of Babylon, the towering walls, the shimmering Ishtar Gate, and the lush hanging gardens, which had symbolized the might and vision of Nebuchadnezzar's reign, now contrasted starkly with the king's condition, emphasizing the transient nature of human achievements when weighed against divine prerogative. Those who had once revered him, who had marveled at the city's architecture and bowed to his decrees, watched from a distance as the mighty ruler became a lesson in vulnerability, a living testament to the consequences of pride untempered by humility and understanding. Even amid the desolation of his experience, the narrative threads that had previously defined Babylon, the unwavering faith of the captives, the prophetic clarity of Daniel, and the architectural wonders of the city continued to intersect with the king's journey, creating a tapestry of moral and spiritual instruction. The young men's courage in defying unjust decrees and surviving the fiery furnace, combined with Daniel's interpretations of dreams and visions, now framed the king's ordeal as more than a personal trial. It became a demonstration of the enduring truth that divine authority governs the course of human history, regardless of the temporal power wielded by men. As Nebuchadnezzar lived among the animals, removed from the privileges and status that had defined him, he had ample opportunity for reflection, to confront the hubris that had once filled his heart, and to recognize that the stability of empires and the grandeur of human constructs are fleeting when contrasted with the eternal order of the divine. The years of lost sanity were both penance and instruction, period in which the king's mind, once consumed with strategy and conquest, slowly absorbed the lessons of humility, patience, and reverence, observing the natural world in its raw simplicity, dependent on God's provision rather than human ingenuity alone. Nebuchadnezzar came to understand the limits of his own authority and the essential role of submission to higher wisdom. By the time the 7 years concluded, the king emerged profoundly changed, not only reclaiming his throne but also carrying with him a transformed perspective on leadership, justice, and the relationship between earthly power and spiritual responsibility. The once proud monarch who had commanded armies and built monumental walls now governed with an awareness of human frailty and divine supremacy, appreciating that true greatness is measured not merely by conquest or architectural triumph, but by recognition of one's place within the larger order of creation. This chapter of Nebuchadnezzar's life seamlessly integrates with the earlier narratives that highlighted the courage of Daniel and his companions, the interpretation of prophetic dreams, and the city's monumental splendor, reinforcing a continuous theme: the interplay between human ambition, pride, faith, and divine authority shapes history in ways that cannot be fully controlled by mortal hands. The king's humbling and restoration illustrate the profound consequences of arrogance and the transformative potential of enlightenment, offering a cautionary tale that resonates beyond Babylon, extending lessons on leadership, humility, and accountability to every age. For those captivated by the epic story of Nebuchadnezzar and the extraordinary events surrounding Babylon, the tale of the king's 7-year affliction serves as a vivid reminder that even the mightiest rulers are bound by laws greater than their own, and that wisdom, courage, and faith endure long after the tallest walls have crumbled. If this journey through Nebuchadnezzar's trials and triumphs has inspired reflection on pride, power, and divine guidance, remember to like this video and subscribe to our channel to continue exploring the remarkable stories of history, faith, and human transformation that illuminate timeless truths and inspire meaningful action in our own lives. As the days of Nebuchadnezzar's extraordinary trial came to a close, a remarkable transformation unfolded, one that would forever redefine his legacy and the story of Babylon itself. The once proud king, who had roamed the fields like a wild animal for 7 long years, slowly began to regain not only his sanity, but also a profound sense of insight and humility that had previously eluded him. The opulence of his palace, the grandeur of the walls he had built, and the splendor of the hanging gardens now appeared not merely as symbols of human achievement, but as reminders of the responsibilities that accompany power and the transient nature of worldly glory. Having tasted the consequences of pride and the fragility of human authority, Nebuchadnezzar emerged from his ordeal with a renewed awareness of his place within the broader order of creation and the divine hand that guides history. When he returned to his throne, the people of Babylon witnessed a ruler transformed. No longer was he solely the king of armies and monumental architecture. He had become a sovereign tempered by humility, guided by a recognition of forces greater than himself. The experiences of Daniel and his companions, who had demonstrated unwavering faith and integrity in the face of impossible challenges, now resonated more deeply than ever. Their courage had foreshadowed the lessons that Nebuchadnezzar himself would embody. That adherence to truth and reverence for divine authority are qualities that endure far beyond the lifespan of empires and the reach of kings. The miraculous survival of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the fiery furnace, once a story of wonder and faith, now carried additional weight as it mirrored the king's own journey from hubris to enlightenment, illustrating that protection, guidance, and wisdom flow from acknowledging forces larger than oneself. The king's restored reign was marked by policies and decisions that reflected this hard-earned wisdom. Nebuchadnezzar, who had once relied solely on the strength of his armies and the magnitude of his constructions to assert dominance, now ruled with a balance of authority and moral discernment. He understood that true leadership requires listening, reflection, and recognition of the moral and spiritual dimensions of governance. His experiences inspired reforms and actions that encouraged justice and fairness, serving as a reminder that even the most powerful individuals are accountable to higher principles. The lessons learned from his period of affliction extended to all corners of his empire, subtly influencing the administration of Babylon and leaving an enduring impression on its citizens, who now saw their king not just as a ruler, but as a man who had confronted his own limitations and emerged wiser and more compassionate. Nebuchadnezzar's personal transformation also highlighted the importance of faith, humility, and the acknowledgement of God's sovereignty. Having experienced the stark contrast between earthly power and divine authority, the king's testimony became a living lesson, The heights of human ambition are fleeting without the guidance of ethical principles and reverence for forces beyond oneself. The restoration of his mind and kingdom served as proof that redemption is possible when pride is relinquished and humility embraced. His story illustrates that recognition of a higher power does not weaken leadership. Rather, it enriches it, fostering wisdom, patience, and a deeper understanding of the responsibilities that accompany authority. Nebuchadnezzar's journey reminds us that the most enduring legacies are not measured solely by conquests or monuments, but by the lessons imparted and the moral insight achieved through trials and self-reflection. As the people of Babylon celebrated the return of their king, the city itself seemed to embody the harmony between human creativity and divine guidance. The grandeur of its walls, gates, and gardens now symbolized not just the power of a monarch, but also the importance of aligning ambition with humility and purpose with principle. Nebuchadnezzar's restored reign became a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, demonstrating that even those who falter spectacularly can rise again when they embrace truth, integrity, and the recognition of forces greater than themselves. His story bridged the historical and spiritual, providing generations with a vivid narrative of caution, growth, and the transformative potential of humbling experiences. For those captivated by Nebuchadnezzar's extraordinary journey, from triumphant conqueror to humbled outcast and back to enlightened ruler, his life offers enduring lessons on leadership, faith, and the human condition. It reminds us that true greatness is achieved not through unchallenged dominance, but through resilience, moral courage, and the wisdom gained from confronting one's own limitations. This timeless story encourages reflection on our own lives, urging us to embrace humility, recognize higher principles, and lead with insight and compassion. If this journey through Nebuchadnezzar's trials, humbling, and ultimate restoration has inspired you, do not forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more fascinating stories from history that illuminate timeless lessons and guide us toward greater understanding, faith, and personal growth. Your support helps us continue bringing these incredible narratives to life and exploring the profound truths they reveal.